That was the Honourable Minister of External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, making a statement at the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation. And a very carefully worded, very strong statement. She reminded the nations that were gathered of India's history, India's partnerships with most of those countries that go back centuries, in fact, in trade and culture, but really brought it down to the neighborhood and to peace and development in that neighborhood. She brought it down. She said something very, very important when she brought up terrorism and violence, saying that it destabilizes regions and it takes a toll on lives. She talked about how a lot of times terrorism takes advantage of distortion of religion. And it's not something that's a menace that can be fought entirely militarily and diplomatically. It must also be faith speaking to faith. She also pointed out that young people would want a better world and we must counter violence, reminding the group and the gathering over and over again that India is the country of Mahatma Gandhi, India is the country of non-violence, India is the country of development, and that is our wish for the entire region and not just for the country. And in order to make that happen, the menace of terrorism ought to be fought. Vinay, very carefully worded, and the message being sent out there nicely wrapped up in the ideas of non-violence and of development.
Yes, and striking exactly the right notes, because yes. I think our experts, Talmiz Ahmed, had in fact indicated that, and that's pretty much what really happened. She stressed on, one, the relationship that India has economically with the Gulf region, how many Indians actually live there.
8 million.
8 million of them.
Yes.
And the fact that the energy supply and the business and the trade, there's a very, very strong connection.
Remittance, she said.
Remittance, exactly. So she acknowledged that contribution as well. The fact that Indians are so large a number there, that there is almost like 8 million ambassadors of India in your part of the world. That's what she said. And then, from the issue of, mentioning Palestine, for instance, saying that she's, the Indians' relations with Palestine have been historic and close, even though we've been coming closer to the Israelis in the last, but she still used that historical...
quick mention.
Quick mention, but it was a usage of the historically strong relations we've had with Palestine. And then quickly moved on to terrorism, which is what was expected. And remember, the significance of this is this. I mean, for Pakistan to not turn up, frankly, at the OIC is a lot like, you have those... old uncles who are not invited to a wedding and they sulk. And it's all
pointing out in the statement that Pakistan put out that it is a founding member of the OIC.
Exactly. So because it's a founding member and having to stay away because India occupies the high table, makes it more very, very important. Yes, the fact that she's driving home the point on terrorism and the reasons behind terrorism, and in many ways without naming Pakistan, saying this is where the problem lies.
Yes, and this is a strong, these allies are important to both India and Pakistan, because there is, of course, the larger pack. There is the US, the UK, France, Russia, China. Those are different conversations that we know Sushma Swaraj has been having for the last 2 days. But in the neighborhood, and especially among the Islamic countries, for India to score a point over Pakistan is tremendously significant.
Tremendously. In fact, actually, in many ways, Pakistan needs this region more than we do. Way more than we do, because they're also now dependent on them for financial aid. And they're badly cast. At least India doesn't need aid from anyone. I mean, there is a business-trade relationship that we have. There is also a relationship of Indians working there. But
Pakistan has just as many of their people working in the Gulf as well.
Correct. Yes. So it's really the financial aid which is useful. Also, the Gulf needs India because India brings the technical expertise for that region. I mean, a large number of projects and everything that's executed are actually Indian engineers and Indian officials who work there. So, but Pakistan is dependent for budget.
And unlike Africa right now, where a lot of the big infrastructure projects are being run by China, the Gulf is still using Indian expertise.
Absolutely.
And is still building.
Absolutely.
And there is, especially Abu Dhabi, it is a city that is in constant construction and is still expanding tremendously. But I do want to bring your attention to this one statement that she said. The menace of terrorism cannot entirely be fought on military and diplomatic, grounds. We must have faith speak to faith. In a conference of Islamic countries, how important is that?
Very important because obviously, look, the location where she's speaking has determined this comment, because remember, this is also the area, this is also the region which is the ultimate, the holy place for Muslims across the world. So there is a connect that this region has with every Muslim country in the world. Whether it is the Shias or the Sunnis, both exist in this region, and the spiritual leaders and the other, all the believers of those faiths have their own, systems and their own communication between the regions. So, by appealing,
especially because a lot of the people in the room, a lot of the countries present in the room, don't want to be associated with terrorism. They want to be seen as countries that have shown a greater path at this point in terms of focusing on development, focusing on prosperity, focusing on giving their citizens a better life.
Yes, because they've had a bad experience with Iraq, for instance. I mean, most of the entire region was, I mean, Saddam Hussein was left isolated because they realized that this was causing them more harm. But temperamentally, they're more of, they have a business mind more than a, hostile mind. So naturally, they are not the types who will support terror. I think that's where, Sushma Swaraj's comment is extremely good and extremely rightly timed and well worded.
All right, we have to take a very quick break here on Mirror Now. So we're keeping our eye on two things. Sushma Swaraj has just spoken at the OIC. Pakistan has given that a miss. So India has scored a diplomatic point there among the Islamic countries of Asia, which cannot be overstated at this point. We also are keeping our eye at the border, where we do believe that Wing Commander Abhinandan will be handed over fairly soon. So quick break and we'll come back on the other side. Don't go anywhere.